one of the reasons why Trump is hated by the globalists, the UK and Europe, is his vision to implement the American system of political economy. Now, he's not the only one in the world doing that. And one of the things that I suspect is that Ibrahim Traoré in Burkina Faso is already putting that in place in Burkina Faso. And that's what Trump wants to do in the United States. And with me to discuss this is PD Lawton. Hey, PD, thank you so much for making yourself available.
Good morning, and lovely to be here again.
Good morning indeed. It's Friday the 2nd of January, 7:15 a.m. UK time as we discuss this. And people can find you. You're on africanagenda.net.
Yes, that's right, africanagenda.net. And they can find some recent articles, and they can find a video, a documentary that we'll be discussing today on one of Africa's greatest, most inspirational leaders. So
Yes.
You'll find that video there. And that's my website.
Great. And you and I, we've recorded a video previously where we looked at what was happening in Somalia and the Congo and also Nigeria, where Trump bombed Boko Haram on Christmas Day, or bombed Nigeria. And then also we're going to be doing another video about what's going on in Somalia and Somaliland, because Trump is bombing Somalia and he's dropped more, I think he's done more strikes on Somalia than Obama did. So, what kind of an anti-war president is this guy? So that's a conversation we'll be having in a separate video. But this one is about the American system of political economy. Now, do you just want to give a short overview of what that is?
Okay, so what does it mean to be a sovereign nation, a sovereign state, in terms of independence? So you have your pillars of independence, and you'll find those cover things like food self-sustainability, energy independence. Your foreign policy is your foreign policy. It's not a country being directed to do what somebody else is telling them to do. So that's really critical, that you are devising your own sovereign foreign policy. The American system is very concentrated on the physical economy, and that is something that has gone out of fashion. So when did it start going out of fashion? Or with globalism, early 1990s. So you have a system of outsourcing all your industry, all your needs. You weaken your state by doing that, and you neglect the foundation, the foundational principles of what it does to project your economy on a constantly upward negentropic trend. So it's always going up. We're always told to be sustainable, which is like, I always liken it to a yellow plastic duck. You know, the little yellow plastic ducks you have in the bathtub. So that's sustainable development, because the plastic duck can't fly and he can't even swim under the water. All he can do is bob around, and that's sustainable development. Yeah. So
if I can come in there, PD, because what you said when it got out of fashion, actually it was developed by Alexander Hamilton, and the idea being that the state directs money towards the productive capacity of a nation, and that's the real wealth of a nation. And President Lincoln, President McKinley, JFK, Donald Trump, and possibly a few others like FDR and Garvey, they were putting in place the American system of political economy. And I did a video with a writer, Robert Ingrahams, about how it's the British that killed the US presidents. So the British behind the assassination of Lincoln, JFK, and McKinley, because the American system of political economy is an obstacle to the European and British elites' project to use financial leverage to strip mine the rest of the world for resources in order to enrich themselves. So the City of London would lend out vast amounts of money, pay vast amounts in bribes to keep nations weak, pay for proxies to cause all sorts of conflicts in order that they can plunder the resources at the lowest cost possible, to the detriment of the local people. And Britain has been marvelously, tragically successful at this since about the 1750s, when the Bank of England became the premier central bank of the world, and it still is attempting to rule through its globalist proxies from behind the shadows. And there's a guy in the president of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré, is putting in place what seems to me like the American system of political economy. So this would give people an idea of, if Trump had his way, what would the United States look like?
Mm. Mm.
Okay, so take us to Burkina Faso. Ibrahim Traoré came into power, was it a couple of years ago, through a military coup?
Yes, that's right. The thing is with Burkina Faso, to my mind, is that Ibrahim Traoré, because he is revered, people across the world are looking to Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, and mostly Burkina Faso for a new model for the African continent. And like you say, is this what Trump is trying to do for America? Is this the resurgence of what we have lost? Is it the resurgence of all that's important to humanity? So the thing about Traore is that he is standing on the shoulders of his predecessor, and that was a man called Thomas Noel Isidore Sankara. And honestly, I could wax lyrical about Sankara till the cows come home. He's my mentor, my guiding light, as he is to millions of people. There's something extraordinary about that man. Now, there's a documentary I mentioned earlier. You can find it on my website. And it's called Thomas Sankara, The Upright Man. It's the most brilliant documentary by Robin Sheffield. And it covers his time in office. Now, he was only in office for 4 years.
When was that?
From 83 to 87.
Okay.
And what he did was extraordinary, really a miracle. You have to believe in miracles when you see what that man did to Burkina Faso. But, very important and very key to what we're talking about and what you cover on your channel is the fact that, okay, you've got Thomas Sankara, and he's a young man in his late 20s, military career. How on earth did he know so much about the casino economy that we live under, this financial empire, the City of London casino economy? How did he know about the implementation of principles of the physical economy? How did he know how to create such a sovereign, successful, and stable country that defined all those ideas of sovereignty and what it means to be a sovereign nation state? How did he know that at such a young age from his background? It's very important and something that has to be answered for anyone who looks into him, and hence what Traore is doing himself. And the reason Sankara knew that, and he had such a good grasp on things that he did. I mean, I'll come to it in a minute, but he did his famous discourse sur la dette and asked all the African leaders at the General Assembly of the OAU and others to renounce the debt. It's very important.
Now, who did this and when did you do this?
Sankara. I'll come to it in a minute.
Okay.
I'm
just taking some notes, by the way, just so you know.
Okay. So the thing is, this is always covered over. Sankara knew a colleague of a man called Jacques Cheminade.
Okay.
Jacques Cheminade, he is the president of a French political party called Solidarité et Progrès. And he is also of the French Institute Schiller, the Schiller Institute. Jacques Cheminade was a very close friend and colleague of Lyndon LaRouche. So the whole principles of Solidarité et Progrès and the Schiller Institute. The Schiller Institute is the president is the late Lyndon LaRouche's wife, Helga Zepp-LaRouche, an excellent woman, and a voice for peace, diplomacy, and the enactment of her late husband's incredible ideas. So that is the connection. That's the key connection. Is Thomas Sankara met a colleague of Jacques Cheminade of Solidarité et Progrès, And this is how he became informed of how things actually work,
Right.
what the
And
IMF and the World Bank are doing, how they issue their debts, how this keeps the enslavement of nations.
yes.
Yeah, it's super important.
And if I can just remind people or let people know, Harley Schlanger, who's the president of the LaRouche Institute, is a regular guest on my channel. And he talks about the American system of political economy. He's based in Germany. And then also Susan Kokinder from Promethean Action, which is an offshoot or a sort of evolution. They bifurcated, but they also promote the American system of political economy. And Susan Kokinder is very, very clear that this is what Trump wants to institute. And then now we have this young man, Ibrahim Traoré, military background, who's, you say, standing on the shoulders of Thomas Sankara, who was in power from 1983 to 1987, and in Burkina Faso. So what was it that Sankara did? And if you can keep it just bullet points or whatever, that was so special. And then how come he was deposed?
Okay, so Thomas Sankara gave people optimism. So we go back in time. We go back to before he came into power. He was part of a military coup, and Burkina Faso at that time was called Upper Volta, extremely poor country. Thomas Sankara and his under the military came in. They took power from the sitting government. And they had an incredibly compassionate way of dealing with these people who had been misadministering the country. They had to apologize to the nation. They weren't sent to prison. They weren't fined. They had to apologize. It was a very compassionate way of doing it, forgiving them for what they had done. He comes in and he comes in and it's bang bang bang, right? He puts in reforms immediately. He has to act very, very quickly. And that is key. I know I'm going to go off on another tangent, and I'm so sorry, but there's this thing, okay, rapid industrialization. There was a huge push for this back in the 60s and the 70s with the early African leadership. People like Kwame Nkrumah, Gamal Nasser, Keita, Sekou Toure, all these very amazing men wanted to implement rapid industrialization. It has to be done very, very quickly before the foreign interventionists, before the City of London come in and have a chance to derail anything. So Sankara knew he had to act very, very quickly. One of the first things he did was he spoke to the population. Now, if you watch that documentary, you'll see how he managed to do it, because it takes a very special kind of person. And if you look at his demeanor, you look at his face, you look at the things he says, which are actually very Marxist. It appears on the surface like he is implementing a form of communism, that it's a Marxist rhetoric, but it isn't. Okay, this is the technique he used, and he explained to them that how to be a sovereign nation. And how to be a sovereign nation is you have those foundational pillars. He said, our fight is against imperialism. And he said, you will ask me, what is imperialism? And Sankara said to the people, he said, imperialism is the food on your plate. It's the rice, it's the maize, it's the millet that are imported. That is imperialism. So what he's saying to them is the self-sufficiency that you have to be strong. You have to be self-sufficient in food. You have to be self-sufficient in energy. You have to be able to direct your own foreign policy. So he continues and he implements a series of very sudden changes to revolutionize agriculture, because the system that he had to dismantle was a feudal system, African feudalism, by the way, which is what the Rwandan regime have re-implemented in Rwanda, is feudalism and apartheid. So anyway, Sankara comes along and he revolutionizes agriculture by dismantling the system of chiefs saying what is to be grown where and what have you. He modernizes the whole thing. he increases the food yield in a very, very short space of time. Very short space of time. I can't remember the stats, but they are astonishing. He says that, part of that sovereignty is the clothes you wear. So he says to people, look, you are wearing jeans and T-shirts with emblems on them. What do those emblems mean? Are those your culture, or are they somebody else's culture? He's talking about jeans and T-shirts with Levi written on them. And he says, where is your love of your country, your respect for your country? Where are we seeing it? We're seeing it in our clothes. So he does this incredible thing with the textile industry. And he does that by saying, no, you don't buy your clothes imported. You buy your clothes which are made in Burkina Faso, and they are manufactured using Burkina cotton, the big cotton industry in Burkina Faso, non-GMO. They ban GMO. This is all creating the domestic economy, strengthening the domestic economy. How much this would work nowadays, I don't know. But this worked then, okay? So it's an isolationist policy to strengthen the country. That worked then. Now, if you go on that subject, sorry, another one that I'm just bringing in there, but Nigeria recently tried this with rice, because Nigeria, all African countries, the domestic economies have been destroyed. This is through IMF, World Bank policy, structural adjustment programs, SAPs brought in the early 90s, completely destroyed agriculture, textiles, because of importing. So you can produce cotton or wheat or whatever with highly commercialized farming anywhere else and import it for far cheaper than people are now able to produce it for themselves. So Nigeria tried going self-sufficient in rice. They have had to give up, or they've been forced to give up, which is the more critical point. They've been forced to give up and start importing rice again because they cannot compete. There's also been rice coming in from other countries. And I must stop going off on a tangent.
Well, let me
back on track.
So one of the things you said to me before we started recording, I think it's a really, really important point, that what Trump is doing with regards to Africa, you're saying, in terms of the actions that he's taken with Congo and Rwanda, and we covered Congo and Rwanda in our first video, as well as Nigeria, but also his actions in Somalia and everywhere else in Africa, perhaps all over, he sees as one war, because the idea being that Trump, the US president, is acting as a bulwark and in opposition to the City of London and its globalist project, which it conducts through its proxies, such as the IMF, such as the World Bank, such as the United Nations, in order to deprive nations of their own self-sufficiency, of their own sovereignty, making it easier for multinational corporations, which are owned by the banksters, and the bankster of all banksters is the City of London, so that they can strip mine those countries. And then what Thomas Sankara did, he acted quickly. And I see, well, that's what Trump did in the first few weeks of his presidency.
With all the executive orders.
He moved really, really quickly. So Sankara put in measures for rapid industrialization, as did the other post-independent new leaders, who, many of whom, if not all of them, were assassinated or replaced by coups, right? Instigated by, who would benefit from weak governments that then allow the globalists to come in? I wonder who that might be. And then he also promoted agriculture, so that the Burkina people are self-sufficient in food versus having to import it. And then you said about the clothes, don't wear Western clothes, wear your own clothes, which actually Zulfikar Ali Bhutto in Pakistan also encouraged when he came to power in the early 70s in Pakistan. And Traore is also encouraging. So,
sorry.
Yeah. So if I'm conscious of the time, right? Because I do want to record a separate video with you with regards to Somalia, and maybe we should just scratch that and we'll just focus on this so we can do this properly, right? So what else did Sankara do? How did his tenure end? Assassination, perhaps? And what's Traore doing?
Well, getting back to the clothes, okay. So everyone had to dress in Burkina Bear clothing, okay, the style of clothing using Burkina Bear cotton. So not everyone wanted to do this. So the people had, if they worked in government, they had Sankara's coming outfit. So that if Sankara was visiting their offices that day, they could quickly change into their Sankara's coming outfit. So, but this was done with humor. So he did brick building. So construction wise, okay, they started numerous brick factories, and the purpose of that being so that everyone could live with dignity. This was a massive program to build housing for people so that they could live with dignity. And those were his words. So everyone could live with dignity. They had a molybdenum, I think manganese mine. Now, the World Bank denied them because the World Bank wouldn't go near them. Hey, there were no loans coming forth. And they built a road from the manganese mine for access to, I can't remember which country, but they built it really more or less by hand. Sankara was instrumental in giving people a sense of being connected, being part of it. They were there building their nation. They were there doing it for themselves. He was out there getting his hands dirty in the brick factories. It wasn't just for television. He didn't ask anyone to do anything that he wasn't prepared to do himself. He had a tremendous style of leadership, the honor, the integrity. He had this incredible thing of not allowing any posters of himself. He didn't want anyone to worship him. He didn't want that, the big posters for, he got rid of other political parties, by the way, and I know why he did that, a very good move. But he disallowed anyone from having images of himself. He said, this country is made up of 7 million Thomas Sankaras. So he was so humble, it's shattering. Other things he did, in an effort to stop desertification. You have a lot of problem with desertification in that area. He got people taking control of their own communities and the land surrounding them. They planted billions of trees and bushes to try and reclaim land from desertification. And this wasn't done under duress. It was like, okay, it's Sunday, let's go out, we're going to plant from here to there, and we'll work with the guys from that village, and then we'll meet up. And now we have a huge green barrier against the sand. But a massive progress in stopping desertification. He implemented Women's Day. He emancipated the women of Burkina Faso. And remember, this is 80s, okay? So like 1984, 85. And before all of this became a trend and a thing that the UN implements, okay? He did it. And he did it out of his own respect for women. He said that women hold up the other half of the world on their shoulders. He put women on an equal with men. He allowed them to join the army, the military, if they wanted. Many of them did. He put them in government, the ones who were right for those jobs. He made a Women's Day where the women could stay at home and the men had to go and buy the food at the market. And everything he did was beautiful. It was so inspirational. And don't let anyone ever tell you any different, okay? Because to this day, that man is an icon. To this day, Thomas Sankara has become immortal. And I'm not saying that lightly. He is a guiding spiritual light for millions of people. Look what Ibrahim Traoré's, whose shoulders he is standing on and why. So it's incredible. Thank you.
All right, so what happened to Sankara?
Okay, so he goes, the problem, he was dangerous, okay? Extremely dangerous because of what he was doing and what he was managing to achieve. One of the key things that sealed his fate, because, the City of London didn't want his ideas spreading. You can see it's a problem now here with the AES and Mali and Niger and Burkina Faso now. And that idea tried to spread to Benin. I think this was the reason for the latest coup in Benin that Nigeria put the iron boot on. So Sankara went before the African organization, this was the original OAU, Organization of African Unity, and stood up at the General Assembly. This was Burkina Faso, 1987. And he said to them, he explained to them how the debt had been created, and that the debt was a gamble on the part of the people who issued the debt. He said, if I renounce the debt of Burkina Faso and I do it on my own, I will be killed. If we all do it together, if we all stand up and do it together, then we can change the trajectory of our continent. He was quite right. He was dead in a very short space of time. He was machine gunned to death by there was definitely the French hand. And
a lone assassin, perhaps a trans lone assassin with mental health problems, or a Muslim fundamentalist fighting for the freedom of the Burkinabe people?
Well, it was actually a friend of his, Blaise Compaoré.
Oh.
Brutus, Caesar right. And Brutus, et tu Brute.
And so was he rewarded for his efforts?
Yes, he became president. And he stayed in power for 27 years. When did Compaoré go? Anyway, Compaoré was kicked out by Ibrahim Traoré.
Right, so that would have been a couple of years ago. And did he reverse Sankara's policies?
Yes, he did. He became very pro-Western, pro-City of London. Careful how I phrase that, but you know what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Yes, he did. And really, the economy of Burkina Faso, I wouldn't say that there's anything remarkable from those years. So the thing is that I also should say about Sankara is, he wanted Africa to disarm. He wanted the guns to be a thing of the past, even though he has come from a military background. And he said that you had to be very consistent and you had to be very careful in teaching your military that a man with a gun is a potential criminal if he has no ideology. So he had this incredible thing of explaining and teaching that this is, the security, national security. You are doing this for your nation. You are protecting your nation. Another pillar of the state, by the way.
Which, by the way, ties in with Trump's national security strategy, which is that the military should be used, because it says in there we're not going to use this to engage in wars for the globalist elite. I mean, he uses the word globalist elite in the national security strategy. Instead, we're going to use it to make sure that our nation is well defended, and then use our soft power in negotiating with other countries, but always being respectful of their religions and cultures and traditions, which the City of London is not, from my understanding.
National security is so important, and I think it's one of the things the liberal ideology from the past few decades is this belief that you cannot have a positive role. It is very important to defend your circle. It is very important to defend the nation state. And perhaps if we can go into it about Somalia, there's a link there.
Yeah, but hold on, because you haven't. There's stuff I want to explore with regards to Traore now, right? So Sankara did all of this. Sankara learnt this from the LaRouche movement, Lyndon LaRouche's ideas,
from Jacques Cheminade,
the American system of political economy. And Trump is taking actions which the mainstream media in the UK isn't really covering to put in place the American system of political economy. They're certainly not looking at it from that perspective. They're looking at the perspective that he's just a narcissist and orange man bad. So, and then Traore comes to power in a coup. So tell us a bit about how did that coup happen? Where did Traore come from? Where did he get his ideology? And what's he doing?
Okay, well, as you said, he got his ideology from Sankara. There's not a single Burkinabe who has forgotten about Thomas Sankara.
Right.
Okay, he's a national icon. He will be adored forever. Traore has had numerous assassination attempts made on his life. I don't know how many now. I think we've lost count, because he himself is becoming as dangerous as Sankara because of what he's doing. And the key thing of what those three states are trying to do is to use their resources for the benefit of the nation, as opposed to mining them under those MNCs that are predominantly City of London extractive industry, and exporting them and re-importing them as processed goods. So that is the trajectory that they are trying to change.
So those three countries that you, just so people are clear, Mali and Niger, and they all border Burkina Faso. He's had all these assassination attempts because he's becoming more and more dangerous. What are the policies that he's putting in place? Like some of them I know that they're building a gold refinery instead of sending their gold to be, because Burkina Faso has gold, instead of sending it to be refined in Switzerland so that the Europeans benefit. So they're building their own gold refinery. He's building a tomato processing plant or whatever. What else is he doing for the benefit of the Burkinabe people?
Culturally, I know in Mali they've stopped French being the national language. I believe the same in Burkina Faso. So this is the cultural renaissance of those people. It's so incredibly important as part of the revolution that you have an identity. We go back to the idea of republics, okay? And you are all the citizen of the republic. You have equal standing within the republic. And part of that concept of pride in your nation. So they are trying to change that, those three leaders, we're talking Traore, to be a critical point of the revolution. But the manufacturing, the nuclear energy, that's so important.
So are they building a nuclear power plant in Burkina Faso?
Yes, they are going to. I don't know at the moment where it stands, but it definitely sounds like a go-ahead. This is being done through Rosatom, the Russian nuclear agency. There are very strong ties between Russia and Burkina Faso. There was a summit in St. Petersburg, how many years ago? 2 years ago, an incredibly successful summit. I covered it in an article, and I must dig it out and have a look. But Traore and Putin got on very, very well. The Russians, going back to 2018, there was the first FOCAC summit held in Johannesburg in South Africa, the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, and Russia were there. And Russia were talking about how they wanted to power Africa in terms of energy production. And obviously, being Russia, this is nuclear. So it's very interesting and very hopeful in terms of energy self-sufficiency that Burkina Faso are looking, and they are going to turn to nuclear energy. Lots of countries are, by the way. Sierra Leone are very interested for one, because energy independence is critical. It's critical to industrialization. You cannot keep industrial plants. You cannot do heavy manufacturing using wind and solar, using renewables. It is simply not possible. So nuclear energy is by far the best option, certainly for those regions. So that's really interesting, the energy independence. Manufacturing, using their own materials. But this is not easily done, hey? The beneficiation of natural resources, it's not something going to happen overnight, because you require a lot of investment to build smelters, to build the big plants, to process or to take bauxite and turn it into steel, aluminium. So it's not something that can happen in a week. And I think that is the critical point where those countries will find themselves, is that you have to do things quickly before those interventionist forces have a chance to undo the good that you're trying to do.
Yes, but yeah, and the other side of that, or another way of looking at it, is that so we have a weakened state that now wants to be a sovereign, strong state. They gotta get strong real fast, because if they stay weak and they grow slowly, well, then it's easier for the globalists to come in. And I'm conscious of the time. There's a few things I want to say that I think that he's done. So one is he has dropped the salaries of government officials, and I think including his own. He's incredibly popular in Burkina Faso for what he's doing, and working in close partnership with Mali and Niger, who are adopting similar policies. But they still have the CFA, the colonial franc. They don't have their own currency as yet. And I imagine moving from the colonial franc to their own currency would be suicidal unless they're really, really strong, because the banksters aren't going to stand it. And just for people who don't know, so there are 19 African countries that rely on Paris printing the currency. And then Paris uses that currency that they've just printed to buy gold and uranium and silver and other resources from their former colonial, from their former colonies in Africa. So Paris can just print up loads and loads of colonial francs and then use those to purchase gold off Burkina Faso. Wouldn't it be nice if you and I could just print out some our own currency, and then we go to the gold mines and buy some gold? It has some worthless paper I just made up earlier, and I'll take your gold. Thank you very much. Wouldn't that be nice for us? So Paris won't take kindly to that.
They do stabilize it. I mean, that was how they got the CFA, and originally was to stabilize the currencies. But the African currencies, the rand is the only one that features as a tradable. I'm not expert in that realm, but when they come in and they talk about the 5 R's under the BRICS, the rand, the ruble, the others. So that is all going to be very important in helping, certainly in those countries, to have their own currency. Just yesterday, Bulgaria dropped its currency and joined the EU, backward. So, yeah, the opposite is happening in Africa. The opposite, the hope that those 3 states are providing. And of course, being sovereign in your own currency is so important.
Yes. And then I think since Traore came to power, there's been an upsurge in militant insurgency. Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, they're all Muslim countries, but ISIS affiliates or ISIS-like cutouts have moved into those nations. Because the other thing that Burkina Faso did was they told the French to leave. I think all 3 of those countries told the French
of course,
military to leave, go.
Yeah.
Well, how they're going to exert control, I know, through funding, like they've done all over the place, through funding militant insurgents under the guise of we're better nationalists and we're going to make Burkina Faso a stronger, better, more Islamic country in order to destabilize it. And then what happens is that the country's resources are then directed towards defeating the insurgency versus building up the country. So now, how is Traore dealing with that?
Well, with difficulty, one of the key things that's happened is progressively African militaries have been, they've been, for one thing, in certain countries, they've been dismantled, disempowered through arms embargoes. Congo is one of them. And they've also been under training, which is training of African armies, which is not African. So they are using a system of warfare, one can say Eurocentric. These are Eurocentric policies, like the Eurocentric energy policies, the green policies being imposed on Africa. These are Eurocentric energy policies. They may work in Europe. They do not work in Africa. And you can say the same for military training. So you've had, for decades now, you've had America, you've had European countries, you had Britain, very much so Britain, coming in and doing exercises and training with African militaries. That style and procedure of training does not work in Africa. It's Eurocentric.
Which is probably why they're doing it, because it used to be in the 18th and 19th century, the Europeans and the British, they offered Africa, India, Australian, Aboriginal peoples all over the world Christianity for their own good. And now the rest of the world is being offered the climate change agenda for their own good, because Europeans, they know best. They know what's best for these poor black and brown people in the rest of the world. And we should be grateful to have them as our benefactors as they strip mine us, our nations, and deprive us of our resources. And what's refreshing is that Trump isn't like that, because the American system of political economy is about sovereign states negotiating with other sovereign states. And he said as much in the national security strategy. So the other thing is that so they're deliberately poorly trained in order to keep them weak.
Not necessarily. Okay, so yeah, it's deliberate in some elements, but the whole concept is wrong. Okay, so
right. But it's deliberately wrong.
It is deliberately wrong. It's deliberately wrong because it's we say it's an imperialist imposition of military strategy, which is Western, being imposed on Africa. Africa has its own problems, its own challenges, and those are only achieved by applying African solutions to African wars, not Western solutions. So you're right, deliberately, but also because it's an imperial concept to come in and train. Let Africans train.
And then one point I want to make, because we are going to have to finish up, because you mentioned this before we started recording, which is that what these insurgencies create, so they keep the states weak. The other thing that it does, it creates displaced populations, which then keep neighboring states weak. So then we have people. I'm speculating here, right? We may have, as people move from Burkina Faso because of insurgency, or from Nigeria, or wherever it's being fostered in order to prevent the state from being having control and being strong and sovereign, moving into other nations, destabilizing those other nations, perhaps moving through into Libya, maybe people from Congo traveling all the way up through Libya, which has been completely destroyed by, maybe that's a video for another day, right? By the Europeans. And then moving from Libya into Italy and Southern Europe, and then traveling through Europe and destabilizing those nations and diluting any opposition that might arise to the increasing authoritarian rule by the City of London and its proxies, which include the European Union, the BIS, the WEF, the United Nations, the World Bank, the IMF. Which is why they're so unhappy with Trump. Orange Man is so bad because he wants a sovereign, independent, strong, non-hegemonic United States. And it might not look that way, because of what we're fed by the media, but also because we all see, I mean, I know I'm guilty of this, right? Seeing American presidents as through the same hegemonic filter. Except I just posted, we're recording this on Friday the 2nd January. Yesterday, New Year's Day, I posted a video with Nick Hudson from South Africa and Susan Kokinda from Promethean Action, looking at what Trump is doing. And then towards the end, and this is a question that I'm going to put to everybody, because I'm actually going to cover this in depth in a further video. Imagine a situation where you are president of the United States and you want to bring out a sovereign, independent, strong United States that isn't beholden to the City of London or the military industrial complex. How are you going to put that in place without getting killed? And so that project prevails. Anything you want to say before we finish up?
Beautiful example, that the weaponization of refugees, the weaponization of it's all the humanitarian industrial complex. So the misery industry, it's creating the situation where you have people who are fleeing, who are suffering, internally displaced people. They are the most powerful tool in the box for manipulation of sovereignty. And it's happening now in our countries. And it's happening all across Africa. IDPs are their greatest tool. They use them, they're pawns.
Yes, the imperialists have been using that for hundreds of years, and anybody who criticizes it is, like I do, is well, people should know I'm a far right white supremacist, allegedly, because I don't want open borders. Okay, thank you so much, PD. Really, really appreciate this. People can find you on africanagenda.net. And, all your work is free, but, I don't know, we should talk about that so that you can actually be rewarded for the difference that you make and the information that you provide. For everybody who's watching, thank you so much for staying through this video all the way through. There are ties in terms of what Trump is doing that ties in with anti-imperialist movements in the rest of the world. And we all face one common enemy, which is the City of London, which wants to extract our blood and smile as it does so and tell us it's doing it for its own good, for our good. This is Rich and PD signing out. All the best. Bye-bye.